This is Beering Ain't Easy. Do you spend all week thinking about what new beer you'll try next? Then yeah, this podcast is for you. Come join us while we try new beers, share our ratings, debate craft beer culture, and in the process, throw a few jabs at ourselves. So crack one if you got one, and turn it up.
Welcome to Beer and Ain't Easy, episode 10 with Adam and Drew.
Coming in live from H-Town.
H-Town's finest coming at ya.
That's a little bold for us.
I didn't specify which H-Town.
Yeah.
All right, Drew. So you've had a week, actually a little over a week, to think about the chase. So last week, we drank the beer that we've been in long pursuit, Pliny for President. Last week, you called it your best beer. Where do you stand?
You know, I kind of thought after drinking that beer that I'd come back this week and I would not feel like going out and chasing for more beers because I felt like I would have hit that pinnacle after I said that it was my favorite beer. I still stand by it. It was a damn good beer. But I find myself more intrigued to search for more beers as opposed to settling.
Settling. Speaking of settling.
Oh.
Last week, you said you've never rated a beer 4.75 before. I hired a private investigator to look at your Untapped history. And that was a false statement.
No way.
Yep. Candy Green, my favorite beer of all time, happens to also be your favorite prior beer. You rated it a 4.75.
Ah, that's some bullshit. Details, you know, like 0.25 here or there. It's math details. I still stick by Pliny for President, takes the edge, still my favorite going forward.
I thought I'd be disappointed, to be honest, because it was so hyped up. I thought there was no way it could live up to it. But it was a fantastic beer. I'm not ready to say it's better than my other 4.75 Candy Green.
Well, I mean, we do love those hazies.
Oh, God, I love those hazies.
Yeah. It's kind of two different categories. But
yeah, it's hard to compare them. The one thing I've thought about all week is the balance that beer had.
Yeah. I mean, what's funny, like your two favorite beers with Candy Green, when you talk about Spindletap, they're not a balanced beer company. They just like, you want a hazy? We're going to double hazy that motherfucker.
Yeah, it looks more like a glass of orange juice than a beer.
But delicious. Speaking of delicious beers, like, you know, this is a first world problem, but I'm going to bitch about it anyway. Looking at my beer fridge from since we've done this podcast, like, I'm running out of fucking space. I don't know about you.
Yes. I'm stacked up in my beer fridge. Like, I used to like have this area that I used to put juice boxes. And now I have like, I'm putting my tall boys sideways and I'm like, stacking 12 ounces on top of each other.
Yeah, the kids can drink hot juice. I mean, you can drink hot beer.
They don't need to refrigerate that stuff. We'll put an ice box in their lunchbox. It'll cool off.
And I mean, I know we split a lot of beers, but like, as I've been on this chase, I'm like, why the fuck do beers come in 6-packs anymore? I mean, like, you just need 2 max and you're good to go.
Yeah. All right, Drew. So what the hell are we going to talk about today?
Today is an episode that we have named The Suburban Life.
What a classic name. And what better time than now to talk about the suburban life?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I've been reading the news, and after this whole COVID business, like places like New York are like fleeing the cities, and they're moving to the burbs to spread out because they're like, oh, they got that good life, all that lawn and shit out there.
They got that backyard, motherfucker.
So Adam and I are experts on a few things, and right now I feel like we're experts on living that suburban life, and we want to prepare y'all for what you're actually getting into if you're thinking about making that plunge.
It is a big move. And it's really important, you know, both the pros and the cons before you jump in.
And we'll probably focus a little bit on the cons because that's a lot more fun.
The funny part is the cons can also become the pros.
Hell yes, they can.
That is intended to hook you in to listen to the rest of the episode.
But before we do that, I'm going to break in because we typically just talk about one beer per episode. But we cracked open one for our Liquid Encouragement pregame beer that was notable enough that I think we should shout out. And that is the Maharaja IPA from Avery Brewing in Boulder, Colorado.
I'm going to rename this beer the Dank Bomb. So I've been really curious to try Maharaja.
You're getting good now with the pronunciation.
I've practiced all week in preparation for this. I wanted to one-up you. So the untapped ratings on this beer are just impressive. They're over 4 and there's over 100,000 ratings. And so anytime you have a beer that's over 4 with over 100,000 ratings, that brewery is doing something right.
Absolutely. Which is my favorite word to say. Adam gave me the look did you say absolutely again?
Absolutely, you motherfucker.
Yeah. On this one, it's funny. I smell it and I smell all citrus, but then I taste it and there's no citrus. It's a lot maltier. This thing comes in at 10% ABV. It's a little bit boozy, but it will sneak up on you because it's not that boozy.
It doesn't drink that heavy, I don't think.
No. It's a good tasting IPA. So you did bring that up on the previous episode that our buddy Manny came through in the clutch. And not only
For the record, who did he bring the beer to?
He brought it to you, but only because you answered your phone first.
When you're in charge of procurement, you've got to stay by your phone nonstop.
So not only did Manny hook us up with our pregame beer, the Maharaja, but also the beer that we will feature and disclose later.
And it is a unique beer. All right, so let's shift gears back to the burbs. What's on your mind? What do you want to let people know about the burbs?
I think since this is a beer podcast, the first thing I have to say about the burbs is you're going to have, if you're moving from the cities to the burbs, you're going to lose a little bit of access to good beer. Not just, you're in that nice condo and you can walk down the street and you hit that brewery in walking distance. No. Dude, you're driving everywhere from the burbs, man. And if you're lucky, there's a brewery out there. If you're not lucky, you're going to the grocery store trying to find that new release of something, and then you're left empty-handed. You got to drive into the city.
I think you're underselling how bad it is in the burbs. So, Drew's talking about the breweries, and, yes, there are an occasional brewery or two in the burbs. But what really gets you is everywhere else, grocery stores, bottle shop. I mean, bottle shops really don't even exist.
Oh, hell no.
I mean, it's if you want a bottle shop, you're going to the city.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to a liquor store, the beer I get in a liquor store is worse than a beer that you get in a grocery store in the city. That's a reality. Don't come to the burbs if you can't handle that.
Yeah. And then when you do find that good beer and you're at the Total Wine in the suburbs, there was one time I had 4 6-packs in my cart and I was rolling up and I was like, you know what? I'm going to check the dates on those bad boys. And I flipped them around and I was like, oh, damn, this hazy IPA is 7 months old. I'm like, I'm not drinking that shit. I feel like the other thing that you have to talk about when you're talking about suburbs are HOAs. My experience was out of college. I mean, I grew up in a small town, which is essentially a suburb in itself. And I went to school in a small town. But when I first moved to Houston, I lived in the city and I felt all living that city life. And then when I moved to California, I lived in the city of Oakland for 6 years, felt like I was living that city life. And then I moved back here and we had to join an HOA, which I had never had an experience with in my life.
Little did you know what you were missing out on.
I was like, I just didn't even know what to expect. I'm like, okay, I have to pay to live in my neighborhood on this house that I bought. It's like, what is this all about?
So full disclosure, I've been in the burbs my whole life.
You have not been living that urban life.
I'm a burb rat.
That's funny because like when we recorded our first couple podcasts up at the Sesh podcasting studio, which is in the city of Houston, not far from downtown, like from living a few years in the burbs, I walked into the city of Houston. Adam was carrying his little diaper cooler and I was carrying my cooler and I was walking in like, we back, motherfucker.
We out of the burbs.
Yeah. I felt like so empowered at that moment. But you, little did I know that you've just been skimming by living the easy burb life this whole time.
I've been preparing for this pandemic the whole time. I knew I'd need a backyard. So let's talk about the HOA life. So there's a lot of people out there that don't know what an HOA is all about. And let me tell you, it's about a lot more than just paying the dues. Pretty much all HOAs come with a neighborhood Facebook page.
Yeah. And
there is incredible entertainment associated with that.
Endless entertainment, I would say. But before we talk about HOAs, let's actually talk about the beer we're going to discuss today. And so first I'm going to crack it and then I'm going to describe it. Woo! All right. So today, this is an all Colorado episode because we went Boulder for the first one. And now we're going to go Oskar Blues Brewery. We're drinking a Scotch ale.
Hold on. Drew is spilling his beer on the floor.
It's a minor detail. I'm looking at it in its profile. And so I need to spill a little bit out to do that. So it's Oskar Blues Brewery. It's a Scotch ale, which this is a little more unique from what we've drank so far. And the name is perfect because in previous episodes, Adam tried to pin the nickname Peeper on me. And so today, it's payback, bitches. This beer is named Old Chub. And that is actually Adam's neighborhood nickname. Dude, I love this can, by the way. I'm looking at it. It's like a blue and green and red plaid design. It kind of looks like an old man golfing pants. It
kind of looks like an old Chub, to be honest.
An old Chub, just like good old Adam.
I'd like to pull the audience. What would you rather have your neighborhood nickname be? Peeper or Old Chub?
Or neither, damn it.
Okay, so we back to the neighborhood Facebook page. So what is your favorite part about the neighborhood Facebook page?
Oh my God, where do I even start? I mean, it's so great because like I've learned like living in this neighborhood in the HOA, there's different personality types on the Facebook page. There's the guy or the gal that's like the negative Nancy that no matter what, like the HOA could be giving out like free pizza and free t-shirts. And they're like, well, our property values are going down. I'm moving out of this shithole. It's like, no matter what you do, they have that like rain cloud over their head and they're bitching. Then there's the other personality types that are on there. They're like asking for things that are so unreasonable that your HOA can pay for. It's like, they're like, I think we need a gate guard and gates around every playground. And I need someone to make sure that no suspicious cars drive by my lot. And I'm like, I'm not paying for that.
Yeah, I'm like, that's one of my all-time favorites is like for like about a 3 to 4 month period, there was just a group of people bitching nonstop about not having a gate in the neighborhood and a security guard manning that gate. And I wanted to post like maybe instead of moving into a neighborhood without that and bitching about us not having that, you should have moved into a neighborhood with that.
Yeah, you go in with like knowing what you're getting, right? Instead of asking for unrealistic fucking expectations. I gotta say, like the most favorite personality type I have on the message boards is the one that is like looking out their window, but just like their blinds just slowly cracked. And they're like, hey, you with your dog pooping in my yard, I'm going to post your picture on Facebook to let people know how much of a dick you are for letting your dog poop in my yard, but I'm actually not going to go talk to you because I'm scared of confrontation.
The days of walking out the door and saying, hey man, pick up your dog poop are long gone. Like now, they'll take a picture of you and a close-up of the dog poop, and they'll put it on the neighborhood page and say, watch out, this guy is letting their dog poop in yards and not picking it up.
We got a dog pooper up.
We got a dog pooper up in here.
Yeah, or if you park your car crossing the sidewalk, they'll like take your license plate number, and instead of just knocking on your door, it's like, excuse me, sir, my kid's trying to ride their bike on the sidewalk, but they're like, no, it's all passive aggressive shit in this world. Welcome to the burbs.
Welcome to the burbs. So you just need to know what you're getting into.
So what is like your personality type in the neighborhood? Like, where do you fit in?
I have no idea where I fit in, but what I like to do is pretend to be like the negative Nancy of the neighborhood. And so I have a group of like, I don't know, probably 8 or 10 friends. And like anytime I see any one of those guys like have any type of violation, I take a picture of them and pretend to be reporting it to the HOA manager. So like I'll be taking my kids on a walk and I'll see one of my buddies, their car will be parked over the sidewalk, and I'll take a picture and I'll be like, just letting you know, I just had to report you to the HOA manager.
I feel like that HOA manager threat, like we use that all the time. We'll be sitting in a group and be like, hey, you know, your yard's looking a little fucked up. Well, I'm calling the HOA manager on you. You're going to get a letter. It's like a threat.
So it's funny because I just got to put it out there. The HOA manager in our neighborhood is named Donna. And I'll be honest, I couldn't pick her out of a lineup. I have no idea what she looks like, but I've talked about her so many times, and I've made so many text message threats pretending to be Donna or threatening to communicate with Donna that like I feel like I'm so close with her. Like I feel like we're best friends.
You're an extension of the HOA.
I mean, I might as well be.
Oh, that's hilarious. You know what's funny is like we have this inside joke about the HOA manager, but then we like went and had a few beers with some other neighbors that we didn't know before. And we started joking about using the threat of the HOA manager. And they started laughing and they're like, we do that shit too. And I'm like, oh, it's not just us. Yeah, everyone does that.
It's like complete independent groups.
I feel like it's the equivalent of when you're trying to get your kids to act right. And they're like, oh, if you act wrong, Santa Claus ain't bringing you a gift. Like that's the same thing we're doing with the HOA manager. Yeah. I got to tell one story.
This is a great story. This story is going to make you want to move to the burbs.
What's great about this story, too, now that we're in October, is it involves a pretty epic Halloween costume. And I let the neighborhood Facebook group determine my costume. All the rage was talking about what we had in our neighborhood. It's called a preservation area. It's basically a bunch of like flowers and weeds that they let grow up in different parts of the neighborhood to look like natural and shit. And so many people were bitching about these preservation areas look so ugly. There's snakes in there. They're coming in and like threatening my livelihood.
Alligators are going to come eat our kids.
And like people were all butthurt about those preservation areas. And granted, I wasn't living right next to one, so I didn't have to look at it every day.
I didn't give a shit.
Yeah. So I actually went out and like we had these signs that say preservation area and it has the neighborhood colors on it. I actually photoshopped that shit and turned it into a sign, and I hung it on my chest, and I took some like fake weed looking like greenery and I draped it all over my body, and I like snuck some snakes in there, and I showed up at the Halloween party and I was like, I'm the preservation area. That was like my best Halloween costume idea ever.
That was a great Halloween costume. But to be honest, I feel like almost every year there's opportunity to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this year is probably like a dog poop emoji,
The
probably.
Dog, yeah. Dog poop.
It's a real shitty costume. I think the last thing with living in a suburban neighborhood that, we kind of touched on a little bit in some of our previous episodes, but I feel like we got to talk about yard of the month. Like, that's something you got to be prepared for.
Yard of the month. I'm chasing. There are two things in my life I'm chasing. I'm chasing that 5.0 beer rating on Untapped, and I'm chasing that yard of the month.
You will never get there.
Do we need to do a side-by-side of our yards right now?
I think we need to make another bet. It'll be like the Ultimate Wager 2.0 that involves both of our yards and yard of the month.
And Total Green.
It's actually True Green.
Damn it.
They're not going to pay you any money for that shit.
They should be called Total Green because that is what my yard looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what I thought about is what a brilliant strategy to get people to take care of their yards. It's like we'll have this $2 sign that we put in people's yard if they get the best yard of the month, and it's going to drive everyone to take care of their yard 10 times more. I understand they're abusing me and manipulating my behavior, but if I ever get yard of the month, I'm going to have a professional photographer come to my house and take a picture of me with my sign.
So I think it's about time for us to talk about old Chub.
I think people are getting sick of listening to our bullshit.
Let's bring on those ratings. All right, so if y'all will remember, we are drinking Old Chub, which the more I look at Adam, I realize this is the perfect freaking nickname for this gentleman next to me here.
That's what my wife calls me.
Dang, you should bringing out the Old Chub.
She doesn't.
So this is from Oskar Blues Brewery from Longmont, Colorado. And I realized I missed an opportunity earlier. This is a Scotch ale, and I didn't pull out a Scottish accent, so I'm just going to bring it out now and say, we're going to get pissed drunk.
Dear Lord, please help me. So, piss drunk boy, what are you thinking about Old Chub?
So when I look at this thing, it pours like a freaking stout. I mean, it's dark looking.
So is this the first Scotch ale you've ever had?
Maybe I've had another one, but I can't remember it.
So I've had several Scotch ales in my day, but I will say this Scotch ale is darker than most Scotch ales.
What are you smelling and tasting on this thing?
The smell is intense. So when I smell it, I get like a strong malt smell, but it's it's sweeter than your everyday malt. And I also get like a smoky smell. Do you notice that at all?
I just breezed past the smell and I just was all thinking taste. And when I started tasting this thing, I was surprised. It was lightly sweet, but the flavors that like just stick out in my mind when drinking this thing are like raisin and molasses. It's like kind of thick, but it's got that sweetness on it that's like that raisiny taste.
Yeah, I get a lot of like roastiness when I taste it. So I have a good malt flavor, which, as you know,
a malt bomb machine.
I am a malt bomb machine. But on the flavor, I do get like the molasses raisin. I was almost going to say like a plum type flavor.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really good beer.
It's very tasty. I like it. It's not something that I would typically go search. I'm not looking for that Scotch ale. And so I'm glad that you kind of pushed me in that direction to try something a little new today. So like with all that, what are you thinking about for your Untapped rating?
Ooh. You know what? I'm going to push it back to you.
You always like me going first. I'm going to make you
go first.
I'm going to go with Old Reliable. 3.75 on this one. What are you thinking?
I'm going to 4.0. I think it is a really good beer, actually. And I love malty ales, and this is about as malty as it gets.
I can respect that for our malt variability between the two of us.
Yeah, I thought you'd be coming in a little low because I know this is a little too much for your
sensitive palate. I'm trying to think of the words you're going to say. No, it's really tasty. I do like this beer a lot, but it's not exactly the beer that I'm like seeking out at the end of a long work week. But if I was going to choose one of this type of beer, this is the one I'd choose.
Yeah, I agree. It's not something that I get home from work and I crave.
Yeah.
Not to make me sound like a belligerent fucking alcoholic, but
that you are.
But it is a really good beer.
Thank you, Manny, for hooking us up with those neighborhood beers.
Neighborhood beers.
And Suburban Life.
Suburban Life. So, I think everyone has heard all they can stand to listen to about the Suburban Life. We'll see you next time, everyone.
This has been a Beering Ain't Easy production at the Sesh Coworking Podcast Studio in Houston, Texas. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you want to see what we're drinking, our untapped handles are Beering Ain't Easy Adam and Beering Ain't Easy Drew.